Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Enjoy your time by subscribe and like. I'm an office worker. Every day, I watch the company leaders show off in front of me. But all I can do is stay meek and obedient. At most, I just pass my work on to the new interns. Every day after work, I finally feel like my life is my own. My steps feel lighter than they do in the morning. But lately, on my way home every day, I keep feeling like someone is watching me. But whenever I look back, there's nothing there. I grab a quick meal at the small restaurant downstairs. Not good. And finally, I head home. Once home, I turn on my computer, but I finally make it home. I play an online game. I finally get to enjoy the happiest time of my day. I've been playing this game for more than 2 years. I even bought this high-end computer for it. So my gaming skills are now quite advanced. Like other online games, this one has a ranking system. In short, it only matches you with players of your level. All players at the same level as you. If you're a beginner, you'll meet other beginners. And skilled players like me only meet other skilled players. When experts clash, the outcome is unpredictable. Often, I fall just short of victory, making me want to throw my mouse. Originally, I relied on gaming to relieve my pent-up workday stress, but now it's just added more. What's a way to face lower-level players? I soon came up with a solution. Create a new account. New accounts start at the lowest level. With my skills, I could dominate the beginner realm, crushing everyone, leading others to victory. I enjoyed their praise, feeling euphoric. I was lost in this feeling, forgetting all my daily troubles. But a red pop-up interrupted my game. The only option was to click. It said, defeat 60 beginner players, and then 6 million cash. Couldn't be. Some kind of scam? I hesitated, but curiosity won. I clicked yes to see. The screen turned completely red. I've seen blue screens, black screens, but never a red screen. In shock, my room was bathed in red light. There was nothing on the pop-up, except the option to confirm. To close the pop-up, I had no choice but to press it, defeating 60 beginner players. That should be easy enough. But what does this 6 million mean? That can't be possible. Is this some new type of scam? I was going to click no, but my curiosity got the best of me. So I moved my cursor to yes. One click wouldn't hurt. I wanted to see what this was all about. Suddenly, my entire computer screen turned red. With the red glow from the monitor, my whole room was bathed in red light. A strange fear washed over me. I quickly pressed the power button to turn it off, but it didn't work. The red light stayed on. Just then, the computer fan started spinning at full speed, making an unbearable noise. The sound hurt my head. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed the power plug and pulled it hard. Everything went pitch black. The power tripped. The room fell silent. I looked around, following the sound, and noticed that my door was slightly open. A red light shone through from outside. For some reason, I felt an inexplicable pull toward the red light. I got up, walked over, and pushed the door open. Who are you? Midnight has come. I'm here to take you. When I woke up again, I realized I was trapped in a pitch black space. In front of me, not too far away, floated a red flower. What kind of place is this? I wondered. Suddenly, a clear, soft voice said, "I'm giving you a chance. Touch the flower in front of you, and you'll enter the game world. There, if you defeat 60 beginner players, you can return to reality and get 6 million bonus. But if you die in the game, you'll return here. Just touch the red flower again to re-enter the game and continue your challenge. Here, you'll never feel thirsty or hungry. You have unlimited time to try until you complete the challenge. Now, the time is yours. Good luck." Hearing the rules, I couldn't help but grin. I never thought I'd encounter something straight out of a novel. Defeating 60 beginner players, earning 6 million should be easy. With my skills, I don't need unlimited time. I could earn that reward in just an hour. Thinking this, I rushed toward the red flower. This feels way too real. Is this really a game? It's almost like reality. Wait, this scene looks familiar. There's even a boat in the distance. I remember now. This is the game's beginner tutorial. The wooden door in front of me was suddenly kicked open. Walked out from the door. At that moment, I realized I was a hideous-looking monster. I am an ugly monster. Wait, do you think he still has a chance to go back? Of course not. The first monster in the tutorial is specifically chosen by the player. Humph, doesn't he like playing with beginners? This should feel like a reward to him. I think so too. This was prepared just for him. This happened in 2021. During that time, I had a big argument with my family over some trivial matters. In a fit of anger, I decided to move out. I found a place online. It wasn't too far from my home. It was in a small residential complex built on a hill in the suburbs. The apartments there were all meant for rental purposes. The room I rented was on the top floor of the last building. At the end of the complex, at the top of the stairs, there was a security door. After opening it, you'd see a long corridor. Rooms lined both sides of the hallway. When I first moved in, it was quite lively. Around then, other tenants had just moved in too. They seemed to work at the same place, renting these apartments together every night after work. Because each door was just a simple wooden door, I could see light seeping out from under their doors. Sometimes, when we crossed paths in the hallway, we would say hello. It gave me a feeling reminiscent of dorm life. And so, about a month went by. Gradually, I noticed things had become much quieter. It seemed they had all moved out. To confirm this, I went to check the hallway that night. There was no light under any doors. It seemed I was the only tenant left on the floor, which was understandable. After all, they worked at the same company, so it made sense if they moved out together due to job changes. But from that point on, strange things began to happen. It was a weekend. I didn't have work the next day, so I stayed up a bit later. Around 2:30 in the morning, I was lying in bed playing on my phone, when suddenly I heard noises in the hallway. As far as I knew, I was the only person on this floor, so the noise outside immediately caught my attention. I listened carefully. It sounded like knocking, starting from afar, moving closer down the hallway. Who could it be? At this late hour? When I came back, I locked the security door outside. Could it be the landlord? But that's unlikely. Who would show an apartment at this hour? I started feeling tense. Luckily, I hadn't turned on the lights. Otherwise, if light leaked out, they'd know someone was in this room. The knocking was getting closer. It had reached the door next to mine. My heart was in my throat. I held my breath, watching the door closely. There was no movement outside. The knocking stopped. I waited for a long time, until I was sure it was silent. Then I lay down to rest. The next day, I checked the security door at the end of the hallway. Locked well. I began to wonder if I had imagined it. Since all the doors in the hallway are wood, there's bound to be some noise. Could it have been the wind, making me think I heard knocking that night? Since it was a Monday the next day, and I had work, I went to bed early. A loud, sharp knock woke me up. The sound was clearly coming from my door. I checked my phone to see the time. 2:30. I held my ear close, but there was no other noise outside. Could it be the wind again? Thinking this, I rolled over and tried to go back to sleep. But after that, every night at around 2:30, there would always be a knock on my door. I couldn't convince myself it was just the wind. On the fourth night, I prepared in advance. It was almost 2:30. I held a small knife, standing by the door, and sure enough, the knocking came. This time, I listened closely. Someone was definitely knocking. I could even tell it was a hand knocking. I quickly opened the door. No one was there. I ran out with the knife. The hallway was pitch dark, not a single person in sight. I mustered up my courage and went to check the security door. It was still securely locked. A chill ran down my spine. I quickly turned back and locked myself in. Since I had work the next day, locked the door. I tried to force myself to sleep. I can only lie in bed, but I barely got any rest. After that, every night before bed, and then every day before I go to bed, I started keeping the knife by my bedside. Interestingly, since I started keeping the knife there, the knocking never returned. Sometime later, my mom called. She said our family dog, Buddy, had scratched her and asked me to come get him. Buddy is a small, white dog, very well behaved. I thought it'd be nice to have some company, so I went to pick him up. That night, Buddy lay beside me as I fell asleep. Just as I was drifting off, Buddy suddenly jumped up, ran to the door, and growled at it menacingly. His body was tense, as if ready to attack. Buddy is usually so gentle. I'd never seen him act like this. I called out to him, but he didn't respond. He kept his eyes fixed on the door. I glanced at the time. Sure enough, it was 2:30. The knocking began again. At the same moment, Buddy started barking furiously. No matter how I called him, maybe even picked him up, he wouldn't stop. The chaos left me frustrated, and I felt overwhelmed. I put Buddy down, grabbed the knife from my bedside, and flung open the door. Then, what I saw sent chills down my spine. In the hallway, all the doors opposite mine were shut, but light was spilling out from under every door. It was as if the rooms were filled with people. It was packed with people. Terrified, I ran back to my room, locked the door, and clutched Buddy. I didn't sleep all night. The next morning, I called the rental agent to end the lease. After hearing my story, the agent quickly sent someone over. Right in front of me, they unlocked the door across the hall. The layout was just like my room. It even had a large window. Right outside that window was a hill, and I could clearly see. On that hill was a cemetery. That's all for today's story. The story happened when I was in middle school. It was a summer night. Because of work, my dad often stayed out late for business dinners. My mom would argue with him a lot over this. Eventually, whenever he had one of these dinners, my mom would take me to my grandma's to sleep. Grandma's place wasn't far. It was in another building in our complex, about a 5-minute walk away. That night, Dad had another dinner, but oddly, I didn't feel like going to Grandma's. I can't remember the reason anymore. Just that my mom seemed a bit angry. She said, "Fine, sleep alone tonight, then." Then she turned and left. I listened to her footsteps fade down the stairs. I went to the living room and turned on the TV, since I was home alone. And Dad wouldn't be back for a while. I figured I'd watch TV for a bit before going to bed. After about 10 minutes, the screen went black. I was plunged into darkness. I froze for a moment, and then it dawned on me. Power outage. I couldn't watch TV anymore, and I hadn't even brushed my teeth yet. Realizing I'd have to do everything in the dark, I felt a bit lost. I sat in the dark living room for a while, feeling uneasy. Eventually, fear set in. It felt like there were countless eyes watching me. From the darkness, forget it, I'd rather get scolded. I decided to go to Grandma's. As I stepped out of the apartment and locked the door behind me, I heard the unmistakable sound of keys jingling below. My first thought was, it must be Mom, ever since I could remember. She's always carried a big bunch of keys. Every time she came home, I'd hear that sound. The keys were getting closer, so I stood at the top of the stairs and called out, "Mom." There was no response, but the jingling continued. Moving up the stairs, it seemed to be right below me. At that moment, it hit me. Why was there only the sound of keys? Normally, the keys would be accompanied by my mom's distinct footsteps. That's how it should be. But tonight, there was only the sound of keys. It sounded like just a single bunch of keys, floating upward on its own. I scared myself with that strange thought. And just then, the jingling sound stopped on the floor directly below me. It didn't come any closer. It just kept jingling beneath me. Who would stand in one spot, jingling their keys? I felt a bit scared, but at the same time, I was curious, so I slowly moved down to see what was going on. But as soon as I started down, the jingling started down too. Whenever I stopped, it stopped. I listened to him. When I walked, it walked. It was as if it wanted to keep a one-floor distance from me. Eventually, I reached the second floor. Now the jingling was on the first floor. I took another step down, and suddenly the jingling stopped. Then I heard footsteps. A woman appeared around the corner of the stairs below. She was holding a dog in one hand and a bunch of keys in the other. I looked at her, wondering if it had been her all along, but I couldn't bring myself to ask. She walked past me without any expression, and we passed each other on the stairs. I turned to watch her walk up. The keys were in her hand, jingling softly as she went. Was she trying to mess with me? It didn't make sense though, and she didn't seem like the joking type. Still, I couldn't shake the thought. I thought so, as I continued down to the exit on the first floor. Suddenly, the jingling started again right behind me. I spun around. Behind me was the dark alcove by the stairs on the first floor. The hallway light couldn't reach it, so it was pitch black inside. The jingling echoed from the darkness, ringing wildly. The atmosphere was eerie to the extreme. Terror gripped me, and I turned and bolted. As I ran, I realized that our apartment was the only one without power. I didn't think twice. I ran straight to my grandma's place. I banged on the door, desperate. As soon as she opened it, I dashed inside, but I noticed my mom wasn't there. I asked Grandma, "Where's Mom? Didn't she come here?" Grandma said she hadn't come over. After staying there for about 20 minutes, I finally heard her familiar footsteps outside. As soon as Mom opened the door, I rushed to her. She looked surprised to see me. Before she could speak, I asked if she'd been the one messing with me. She looked at me, completely confused. I asked where she'd been. She said she'd gone to the community room to watch people play cards. I told her what had just happened. She just said I'd been scared being alone and told me to stop making things up. The next day, when we got home, there hadn't been any power outage. I could only come up with one explanation. After she left that night, she didn't actually go to the community room. Instead, she lingered downstairs, looked up, and saw the light from the TV in the living room window. She got angry and went to the breaker box to cut our apartment's power. Then she waited for me to come down and followed me, jingling her keys to scare me. So when that woman with the dog appeared, the keys stopped jingling. Mom must have seen her and didn't want to look suspicious, so she stopped shaking the keys. She must have hidden in the dark near the stairs. And when I got to the exit, she gave me one last scare. But even after all these years, whenever we talk about it, I explain my entire theory to Mom, hoping she'd admit she did it just to mess with me. But she always assures me that night she really was watching people play cards. Apart from that one time, Mom's never joked around with me like that. Whether it's true or not, it left a mark on me. That night was a childhood nightmare. That's it for today's story. But this is not the end. Everyone, see you next time.